Hello and welcome to another episode. We will be taking a look at the medieval weapons by modularity, which contains 8 weapons. Normally goes for around $15 and has a folder size of less than 740 megabytes. Going to the demonstration level, you can see the weapons laid out. Up close, the details do not break. And for most part, they're symmetrical on both sides. And you can see the effects on the blades and the end of chains. These are all customizable through materials, and this frame is also included. That just showcases different materials. Looking at the modeling mode, most details come from the normal maps, but there are some details modeled here. In this case, the edge on this axe is not smoothed out. Looking at the collision, they're terrible, and that one uses complex collision. And taking a look at the wireframe mode, and this is the folder structure. We got blueprints, maps, materials, and then the weapons, which contain the textures and the meshes along with the materials. The blueprints are the frame with the swords inside, or the weapons inside. In this case, I'm putting these, but you can see that the material is not correct, so you have to set their materials individually there, and you can adjust the location or the transform of the weapon. This one is more simple, but this one has like glass in it. As for materials, there's one master material for the weapons. Now, an issue, I wouldn't say an issue, but an oversight I encountered with the ORM texture. The sampler is set to color and the texture is set to be sRGB. Now I've copied the entire folder into another folder in which I disabled the sRGB on those textures and changed the sampler type to linear color. And let's compare them side by side, and we can see that the one with the disabled sRGB kind of looks dull, but just wait a second. That's because in the material instance it has been adjusted to compensate for the difference that the enabling the sRGB would make. So when you disable those multiplier for the roughness and metallic, it should look similar, or actually the intended look, or so I believe. There are some material instances provided for each weapon. This one is without any of those glow or those effects. This one is with a different color, reddish color. So yeah, looking at the textures, there are the 63 4K textures, 10 2K. The textures are base color, normal map, ORM, ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic, and masks. And taking a look at the material instance parameters, you can see like you can change the textures, of course. You can change the color, and then you can change the emissive part of the light of the blade or the handle, and the symbols. You can adjust the speed at which they appear and disappear. This may not be that visible here. It's probably more visible in the viewport. You can also slow it down, changing the specular, the metallic, the roughness. Now, if you notice, the mask textures are just separate ones, and they're not packed into one. It should have been packed into one, because for each weapon they're using just the same. There are no variations, so it should have been one packed texture. As for vertices, almost all of them are below 10,000, with the exception of one being around 11. And they do have LODs. They all have one material slot and just one UV channel. These are the LODs. And for each weapon, static and skeletal mesh are provided. And for this, you can see that these are the bones. And the end change for I think all of the bones, or that have like an end tail, they're all rigged. There are no animations provided though. Looking at the physics assets, you can see the ugly collision. And yeah, so almost all of them have like an end chain or something similar. Now, then these are not simulated. So in order to do that, we first have to add, yeah. So this is the bone. We have to add a shape to it, to the bone. I think sphere should be better, but we have to rescale. Then we click the constraint between those two. We go to the details. Let's adjust it a bit, and we change the rotation to limited. As for this axis, around 90 degrees should be good. And yeah, we click parent dominate so it doesn't interfere with the parent collision. And this is for the other axis. For this one, this is looking much better, and we can do that for the other shapes as well. Sorry, for the other bones, we just add shapes and just use the same value as the previous constraint. Now I'm gonna skip that bone and just go directly for the end. Same thing, just probably it doesn't show it because I skipped a shape, but as you can see, it can simulate it roughly. Now looking at the UVs, it's well packed. There's I would say minimal wasted space, but you can see that the UV islands have been how can I say it has been split. That creates extra vertices. I don't know what was made like that. And the same parts are not, or the symmetrical parts are not overlapped on any of the weapons. That could have possibly reduced, that would have enabled it to reduce the 4K texture to use a 2K instead and still retain the same pixel density. There is wasted space in that one, especially in that rectangular space there. Overall, it is a good quality pack. There is some slight style to it, so it's not super realistic. It does have skeletal and static mesh counterparts. The UV packing is good. Texture masks are being used for the emissive parts. There are material customization. But then again, it has its own flaws. The collision mainly are not good. The mask textures are not packed into one texture. The ambient occlusion reference metallic is set to color in the sampler instead of linear color, and it does have the sRGB enabled in the texture itself. That led to some not problems, but I would say inconsistencies, and the author had to compensate it through the material instance parameters. One of the weapon, I think it was an axe, the side was not smoothed out, and as shown in the UV section, more vertices could be shared by more triangles. And speaking of UV, the symmetrical parts are not being overlapped or reused. And lastly, the end chains of the weapons are not being simulated. I've showed how you can fix that. In fact, most of the cons in this pack can be fixed by the user. But then again, I'm reviewing the product as is and not as should be. So I hope you enjoyed this review and have a good day.